stat the other day about how some percentage of podcasts never make it to a third episode.
Look at us.
Did I read the stat and feel strongly enough about it to actually remember the percentage? No, I did not. But here we are, 11, which I recall being the name of a kid from Stranger Things. I only watched, I think, 3 episodes of that.
Jerod, you should check out Stranger Things. It's pretty good.
This might be one of my most controversial takes, but is very much in line with the theme of this podcast, which is that I have pretty high standards for child actors.
All of those actors are pretty good.
If you choose to believe that, that is your prerogative.
Okay.
I could say something else if you don't want us to get canceled from the internet, because that's molten lava in terms of level of a fire take.
No, I think it's okay. I think you're allowed to not like Stranger Things. But yeah, I thought it was pretty solid so far.
Oh, it's still going.
I think they're making more. But honestly, I don't know. I don't know.
What do you like about it?
What do I like about Stranger Things? I like those kids. I think those kids are charming little performers. I like seeing Paul Reiser show up and stuff. I'm mad about him. Winona Ryder, super good. It's like scary monster stuff, you know? It is like a little bit before my own time. It's a little bit before that Home Alone era.
Oh, in terms of the nostalgia, it's supposed to be tickling?
Yeah. Like these are like Ghostbusters people making, television, making entertainment. And I wasn't a Ghostbusters person. I like Ghostbusters just fine, but I was like watching the Ghostbusters cartoon, not the movies.
Or as they call them, the real Ghostbusters.
Yeah, we're just you and I were just born a little too late to really sink into that stuff. Like 5 years before, it's strange how like 5 years can make all the difference between like, oh, this band, this movie, this TV show, whatever means the world to me, and it just not hitting on your cultural radar at all.
Yeah, people who were a little bit older like really loved The Outsiders.
Yeah. That was a book that I skipped in middle school because I was in the gifted class and we were reading like Julius Caesar or something like that. And then all my dumb friends were like, you got to read The Outsiders. It's so good. It was really like this sort of like a cultural milestone for them. They had like all these references. They were talking about characters. I've been teaching English for 15 years. I've still never read The Outsiders. I know there's a pony boy. That's all I know.
Well, I did read it. I suppose I was in a dumb class somewhere along the way. Actually, not in lit. No, I think it was our school that was dumb because I must have. This goes over so well, I'm sure, in podcast land. Just 2 people talking about the gifted programs that they were in. Either way, I just know that people who were in their late teens and 20s when like The Outsiders film came out in the 80s, like if you were a teen or 20s in the 80s, that resonated with you, but we just don't have that.
Yeah, it means nothing to me just because I was born at a certain time.
Very strange.
What's your favorite REM album?
See, it's
that's the stamp. Like, if you've got like your REM album, I think that's just how old you are. It's like Saturday Night Live cast members. It's like, yeah, it hasn't been good since when I was 13. Like, that's all anyone ever says.
We have talked about that, and I do think Saturday Night Live is good enough to have had objectively better times because, like, Eddie Murphy was clearly not my class, but I think he's one of the superior ones.
Sure, in terms of him being a funny individual, but like watching those old Eddie Murphy, like Saturday Night Lives, are so dumb. They're so slow. I'm not really sure where the jokes are. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't know. I think him, and honestly, like the Steve Martin stuff was also pretty good as well.
Yeah, but he's like hosting the show.
So who's your SNL class?
I like Phil Hartman. Like, but that stretch of like Phil Hartman all the way to Will Ferrell, like that's sort of my window. But I'll watch Saturday Night Live now, like not religiously, but when I do watch it, I'm like, this is fine. This is perfectly funny. Like, it's well executed. It's fine. I'm not rolling on the floor laughing, but I'm not 12 anymore either.
I think you're just a better person than me, I think is what it comes down to, because I just can't be that objective about Saturday Night Live in the last 20 years.
You know what movie really resonates with people of our generation? Home Alone.
The first one?
Yeah, the first one. Which I do. I mean, if we're gonna talk about the stuff, like, it does seem like people kind of mix up the first and second one. There's like a lot of memory blending that people do between the first and second movies.
There is a lot of that. And it's why I am not a big believer in the Mandela effect, because things like that I remember even as a kid people would do. Prime example, the Berenstain Bears.
Mm-hmm.
I lived down the street from a kid who called it Berenstein Bears. And I was like, you're just getting it wrong because you're not paying attention. So what I'm saying is, like, he would remember it that way now, because he was like, I remember it being Berenstein Bears.
You just weren't reading.
But at that moment, I was in my mind telling him, no, you're getting it wrong. So for every one of these Mandela effects where it's like, this thing's changed, I'm like, no, some really annoying person like me was being there silently going, actually. And I recall that being the case with Home Alone 1 and 2. People would be like, yeah, I'm like, Donald Trump's in it. I'm like, you don't think he's in the one where he's in New York?
Well, because they are sort of almost like mirror images of each other. There's a lot of like misremembering about like which of the break-in, Looney Tunes style gags are in the first one versus the second one. But the second one is much more cartoonish, much more outlandish. It's going to 11. It does seem like people sort of misinterpret the first one as being as cartoonish as the second one, and it's just not. It's a little more grounded. There's not a skeleton with electrocuted hair at one point,
which is why I look forward to season 2, because man, those minutes are going to be way more dense. There's a lot more per minute in Home Alone 2.
Oh, interesting. You see, I'm slightly dreading it because I just don't love 2 as much as 1. I think 1 is a perfect film, and 2 it's got some elements there, but it doesn't have the charm of the first one at all. It definitely, to me, it reeks of some cash grab.
Home Alone 2 is like late stage REM. If you think of it as REM, it's clearly not going to hold up. But if you just think of it as another band, you'd be like, man, this band is really good.
That's Weezer. That's Weezer for me.
That's the example I always use.
Yeah, if Weezer puts out
kind of thing.
Yeah, if Weezer puts out a good song these days, it's like,
just that you mentioned.
Yeah, it's all right, but it's no first 2 albums.
I've used that with Green Day as well.
Sure.
There are a lot of people who take issue with everything they've done.
I think I'm guilty.
For whatever reason.
I'm an insomniac guy.
which is a near perfect record.
Yeah, yeah.
But so is Warning.
Oh, see, you've lost me.
Yeah.
You've lost
Yep.
me. And this is our age difference.
We're getting into the micros now.
Yeah, we really are. It's like, I'm sorry, I was 13 this week. When were you 13? Yeah, that doesn't work for me. Because we're splitting hairs here in terms of early.
Right, because now I think that's like a similar thing to kids who got onto Vine versus kids who got onto TikTok.
Oh, sure.
Because like if you missed that Vine week, like you missed it.
Yeah, that's true.
Man, I should have segued earlier when you said it goes to 11, because this is the 11th minute.
It sure is. We're on minute 11. We're still in the kitchen, right? If you might remember from last episode, Kevin has attacked his...
We're even further zoomed in, actually. Not only are we in the kitchen, we're in the trash can.
yeah. It starts with Peter McAllister, the father, throwing away what he thinks is just a pile of milky napkins, but in fact he's got Kevin's passport and plane ticket. Is that's what gets thrown away here?
So I've been thinking about this more than any human should.
This is why we have the podcast, because we're the two who think about it more than anyone.
And with him in the previous minute, which I don't know why anyone would jump in at minute 11, but if you haven't heard minute 10, there's some sort of reverse spoilers going on here, but he stands up and sort of excitedly says, "Passports." And I think that he's so caught up in saving passports that he doesn't save airline tickets.
Sure.
Right? So when they're spilling everything all over the counter, he gets up and he goes, "Oh, the passports. I have to save the passports." And in doing so, tries to save passports at the expense of anything that doesn't look like a passport. And in doing so is just cavalier about throwing away whatever's there. And that ends up with him throwing away airline tickets.
I totally buy it. They've orchestrated a moment where you completely believe that some plane tickets and or passports can accidentally get thrown away, and no one notices, and no one will notice later, because it is just so crazy for this 10-second session of yelling and fighting and milk.
It's the efforts of many. If you think, oh, well, did Kevin's passport get thrown away? Yeah, possibly. Because he's not the only one cleaning up. There are other people who are just sort of like handing him, napkins or paper towels or whatever. And then he's like, yeah, as whatever I'm cleaning up, as long as I don't clean up any passports, that sort of thing. He's just so narrowly focused that he's also not worrying about whether anyone else is throwing away a passport. It's just the right amount of chaos. Like, I think you said it exactly. It's so believable. It just does not feel like a throwaway plot point that says, oh, well, how do we forget the kid?
It's so good.
Cheers.
Jerod, I took a little peek at the screenplay that we have that we have dug into, which mostly reads exactly how the scene plays out. There is one insult hurled at Kevin in the film that is not in the original script. Would you like to guess what it is? Take your time. I'm leaving all this in.
Please don't.
You're being so careful.
because I'm fascinated by just to let you in on where I'm at. I've taken myself to the day of shooting.
I think this is a good train of thought. I think we've talked about some things that should lead you to at least a healthy guess here.
We're kind of post-fight, so I feel like it might have something to do naturally with the sort of brother maybe mother dynamic, the like Kevin, Buzz, Kate triangle.
Yeah, I think this will lead you to the right answer. But what I'm discovering as I look through this script is that probably by necessity, a lot of the children's lines don't get changed at all. I think if you were to compare actors' lines to what shows up in the movie, like Kevin's lines are almost 100% the same as we see in the film, which would make sense. You gotta teach the kid the lines, and you don't change. He's not an improv master. So the adults are a little more flexible, maybe.
Is it the famous line?
Yeah.
No way.
Uncle Frank saying, "Look what you did, you little jerk." Not in the script. It breaks up. It cuts through all of the noise of the fight, all the commotion. It stops everybody dead in the tracks at what leads to that long panning shot of
that pan.
Everybody disappointed in Kevin. It cuts back to Kevin. It's so long, and he keeps looking, but it cuts through that noise and creates a very pregnant, upsetting silence, and it's not in the script.
That's just so surprising because, like you say, there's so many shots that all exist around and in service of him saying that, right? It's him sort of wiping off his pants and then swooping up for him to have said that.
It's what interrupts him, like listing all the pizza toppings he doesn't like.
Which I feel, did you write them down? Because I would love to.
I think the only two that we hear in the movie is sausage and olives, right?
I think he says onions as well.
Okay, onions is in the script. I couldn't remember. I never hear it. I hear sausage and olives, but
there was one thing that I did hear. That's another one of. I don't know what we should call these, but this little under dialogue.
Yeah.
That happens after.
Oh, it's so good. I love it.
The now what's for dinner?
Oh, that's not what I was going to say.
Oh. I was like, there are a few in this one, but which one excited you?
I like, I'm not even exactly sure who's saying it, but one of the cousins said, your brother's, your brother. And then the other one goes, like, we don't know. Like, we don't know. It's such a great line because.
So that comes right after the now what's for dinner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's just the kids back and forth is that little under dialogue. The now what's for dinner? Oh, your brother. Yeah. Like, I don't know. Like, we don't know.
And none of that's in the script. So that did have to get sort of manufactured at some point. It's all off camera. So it might have been after, after they shot the movie and stuff. But it is this very natural conversation of these cousins getting back to the business of what will we eat now, and geez, your brother.
Which is so good, again, after this long, that whole, like, thank you for calling Pizza Hut. Would you like thin crust? No, thank you. Pan. Just, so long. So good.
Everybody just stared him down.
So our best guess is what? That someone in a late edit while they're setting this shot up says, okay, there has to be something that moves from sausage to long pan. Someone has to say something, and then that gives them enough time to say, okay, well, it's got to be Frank saying something. Let's give him a few options. What do we think there?
I think they cast Frank and they realize what a great character he is, and they give him this one more line. And what I love about it, I think we've talked about it before, but like the audacity to call Kevin out like that. He's a child, but you need Uncle Frank in this moment. You need Uncle Frank to be able to say what all the adults are really thinking, but they have the poise to hold it in. But Frank will go there. It makes sense for Jeff to say, "You're such a disease." He's a kid. He's gonna trash talk his brother. But for Uncle Frank to say it and really cut to the heart of what's going on in this moment, that Kevin is being a little jerk. Kevin really did ruin everybody's night here.
Well, because he doesn't give him a childish insult. He gives him an adult insult. He says,
Yeah.
like, he notes that he's being little, but not
Yeah.
that his amount of jerkness is small.
Yeah.
He is a little jerk.
That neither Peter nor Kate step in for a second there and say, "I'll handle this. I've got it. I'll take care of disciplining my own son. Thank you." It's pretty telling. It's a little frustrating.
It is. It always felt a little wrong.
I'll buy it because it really does speak to the tension of this moment here. Kevin's ruined the night.
Not unbelievable, but wrong in that I don't want to be the parent that doesn't step in. Like, I don't feel like I just have a strong sense for justice, and I don't think that's quite right. Like, him having to hear it from Frank, who's the worst adult there,
By miles.
and then to just get dumped on by like the other kids, and then him kind of be shuttled upstairs. It always felt a little wrong of like, oh, so mom gets to go and send him off to be disciplined, but she didn't have the wherewithal to say, I don't know, it just felt like they were adding on to what Frank had said, as opposed to, okay, Frank, yeah, you got the spirit of it, but let's not do that.
Yeah, I just want to, "I'll handle this."
Yes.
From either Kate or Peter. And we don't get it. I understand why we don't get it. It opens the floodgates of everybody telling Kevin how they feel about him. "You're such a disease." We get two insults if we're watching out for the different names that Kevin gets called. This minute's got two of them. He's a little jerk, and he's such a disease.
Yeah, and he doesn't get defense from either. It's like you either call him a jerk and let him deal with the consequences of being an adult and getting all of that, or you say, okay, that's enough. I'll handle it, whatever his version is. And then you dole out but they were just like, yep, all that stuff you just got was deserved and you're getting punished.
I do like seeing Peter and Kate, mom and dad, on the same page discipline-wise, right? Kate tells him to get upstairs. Kevin gives the sassiest why in all of cinema, I think. The why that Macaulay Culkin musters up for this reading is incredible. It's amazing. I can't even replicate it. Like, it's so good. Kevin, get upstairs. Why? He's such a little snot about it.
I feel like I would hear it on Billy on the Street.
He's got such a smart mouth on him. It is a moment. I don't know if you feel this way, where like, even as a kid, I'm like, ooh, no, you don't talk to your mom like that.
I would never.
Oh my God. So, and again, we're at the beginning of the movie. He's in I've got lessons to learn mode, right? We're still in the antithesis of the movie. So of course he'll go there. He'll transgress that way. But golly, that's the most unbelievable part of the movie. Everything else I'll buy. But that he would smart off to his mom like that. Oh, man.
Well, it's why my parents wouldn't want me watching it. It's not about the cursing.
It's the back talk.
They're like, no, you're not getting any ideas.
But to get back to my point, I like that mom and dad here have that united front. Like, Peter doesn't back off. He supports Kate here. He says, Kevin, upstairs. Like, they are both on the same page with what Kevin needs to do now. They're both insisting. He's not negotiating or like turning to one for a lesser sentence or more understanding. Like, they're on the same page. I like seeing that, because that's tough. It's tough to be on the same page. I saw my parents like not agreeing with each other in terms of like what to do with us as kids all the time.
And I think as parents, you underestimate how consistent you have to be.
Yeah.
Because any crack in that at all will be found out.
It's good husbanding.
Yes.
Peter's a good husband in this situation. My wife said something, that's what goes.
If I'm to play devil's advocate a bit, I'll also say they're literally in the same room seeing the same thing happen. So there's no possibility of him getting a...
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's fair.
Different version of events.
Yeah. They both saw exactly what Kevin just did.
Which may be a rarity. It's funny because you see people gather in these groups for, some sort of familial event or whatever with a larger family, but that's actually sometimes when the immediate family gets together as well.
Yeah, this might be the first family dinner that the Peter McAllisters have sat down to together.
Yeah, I mean,
for a while.
Because Buzz plays 12 different sports, so I'm sure they're always at practice.
Rod is on the chess club or the science Olympiad or something like that, right?
Yeah. So, and Jeff is just out. Jeff is consistently in trouble.
Jeff is smoking, right? Like,
Jeff's a street kid for some reason.
Never dawned on me before, but if anyone in this family is smoking cigarettes, it's Jeff.
Adults included. Jeff is just the most rogue individual. Like, I want to hear his take on most things before any of the adults in that room.
Yeah, and like he's got a pretty insightful look on things. You're such a disease.
It's a novel insult.
It is. I don't think I've heard it before.
Or since, because you can't top it.
Ooh, let's start. Let's bring it into our like normal conversation.
I think I might do that.
That kid, such a disease.
Such a disease. Doesn't Kevin say something about
shut up? He tells Jeff to shut up.
Not exactly a battle of wits.
Yeah, that's true. He's not equipped with a sassy retort.
I guess he used all of his energy on the why earlier. Moving toward what I would say is like the end of this minute.
Yeah, we leave the kitchen.
We do leave the kitchen. And depending on where you kind of chop or cut at this minute, we get information about Frank that I hadn't really put together before.
You talking about when Kate kind of breaks down like why everything's so crazy? We get sort of an exposition dump here.
We do. And unlike what you and I were talking about off mic earlier, which is exposition that's necessary and just ham-fisted, this was exactly the kind of thing a mom would just start saying when she's frustrated. And if you cut it out, the rest of the movie would work just fine. We hear where Frank drove in from.
Yeah, Ohio.
Who knew? If you were to have asked me where Frank drove in from, maybe I would have guessed Ohio, but I don't know. Where does he feel like he's from?
It feels like Ohio. I just did a Google map search. Ohio to Winnetka, Illinois is about 5.5 to 6 hours. So depending on which part of Ohio he's coming from,
Yeah.
They just ended about a 6-hour drive.
I mean, yeah, if he's coming from Cincinnati, that'd be a good bit, right?
Yeah.
We get a nice little ribbon tied in a bow with the final line from the pizza guy in this scene, not his final line in the film, but his final line here is,
nice tip. Thanks a lot.
She did it.
How much do you think she gave him? $122.50.
Do we see it?
I don't think it's high. I don't think it's high res enough to look. No, I've looked. It's just a big wad of cash.
Enhance.
Do you think she gave him $140 or more?
Well, he didn't seem like he was saying it sarcastically.
No,
like
he means it.
He meant that. So I think that's over 20%.
Okay. He says, nice tip, thanks a lot. And she says, thanks.
What else do you say? Now beat it.
The common response to thanks is you're welcome. Another common response to someone who provided a service for you is to say, oh, no, thank you. But she says thanks for the amount of her tip. Like she's accepting the compliment of having just given a nice tip. She says thanks the same way if he would have said like, oh, your hair looks nice today. Thanks. Nice tip. Thanks a lot. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm a good tipper.
Isn't that the pinnacle of the tip subplot, though?
This tip has been dragged out for 3 minutes now, I think. We've been talking about this tip, and now we don't even know what it is. We just know that it's nice.
You know that someone somewhere knows what it is. If it was known. Because it's entirely possible that there was no number.
So $140 would be a $17 tip.
Which I don't think is enough.
For a pizza guy?
So someone who walks from the kitchen to my table, I give 20%. From someone who walks from a building into a vehicle, drives that vehicle.
Sure. We're not justifying it that way. I'm saying you historically have tipped your pizza delivery people 20% or more?
Yes.
That's wild.
I've never paid full price for late pizza.
It's a different podcast, Jerod.
But paying for the pizza versus tipping your service people, those are two totally different things. What do you think is an appropriate tip for delivery? And mind you, sort of going back to the generational piece we're talking about, this is when there was no 87% delivery surcharge added to your order, right? There was no DoorDash fee plus delivery plus convenience fee plus whatever. Like you paid for your pizza and then the delivery guy brought it. So you assume that there's no additional fee added on for this delivery driver.
I'm trying my best to think back to the early 90s in terms of what a dollar's worth and tipping culture, which has also maybe been inflated over the years.
My favorite, no, that's a whole, just cut that out.
We're cutting that out. You're gonna talk about how servers don't deserve. I'm not cutting this out. Jerod is staunchly anti-tipping.
No, it was
He's Steve Buscemi in Reservoir Dogs.
I don't tip. No, my favorite thing is how they're not even bold enough to ask for it. Tell me how many times you've heard this line. It's going to ask you a question. And what question is that, Derek?
Set me up for success, Derek. What
question?
What question will I be answering? Tell me.
Yeah, that's the thing that like drives me nuts. It's just hearing that over and over. Don't pretend like something else is happening. Don't pretend like this is the part of the survey.
Sometimes it's a different question.
Sometimes
there will always be a question, but I don't know what it is.
Who, me? I have no idea what's there. I'm not allowed to look during this portion of the iPad.
I'm on this side of the register. I don't know what to tell you.
You and me, we're in this together.
Oh, a tip? It's asking for it. Oh, interesting. Oh,
well, how would you feel about that? I know what I would do.
How would you rate the service you got at this fast casual burrito joint today?
Where you received an incorrect order consistently, somehow.
So, $150? You think she gave him 150?
I think so.
Okay.
I think that's the thing. I think that $50 bills were more common then.
That'd be a 22.5% tip.
So she's like, here are three $50 bills.
Forget it, Frank. We have cash.
Traveler's checks.
So yeah, okay. I'll buy $150.
It's also got to be clear enough of a good tip that that pizza guy does the math in his head as she's handing it to him.
He's already done this math. Driving over. I've got 10 pizzas here. It's $122. This is going to be a pretty spicy tip.
So he's like, all right, if I get 140 or more, that's acceptable. He's like, if I get 130 or less, I'm trashing the place.
I think, again, going back to like what I vaguely remember as being like what you tip a pizza guy in the early 90s, I think our go-to rate was like just rounding up to the nearest dollar and adding another dollar. So if it was $10.50, you give him $12.
I feel like the dollar tip was like drinking tip culture. Like it's $1 a drink until some years ago when that no longer was acceptable. But the reason that was a good rule of thumb was because that was over 20%, but it was a good shorthand.
And now $1 isn't 15% of the drink you spot. Thanks, Joe Biden. Sorry to get political here, Jerod, but this guy wakes up and just presses go on the money machine.
Yeah, in the same way as every president has ever since the Federal Reserve was founded.
I just don't understand why he wakes up every gosh darn morning and turns the dial on the gasoline price machine up just a little bit more. We're hurting here, Joe. Joe Biden's such a disease.